This is how much of a progressive I am. I wrote this book about the origins of patriarchy before war, on marriage, hierarchy, and our matriarchal origins. My name is Elisha Daeva. I live in Western North Carolina, and the media isn't telling you how utterly insane and devastating this hurricane has been. And there's been a complete failure of our Democratic leadership in my county, in my state, and at the federal level, where Biden didn't even know what storm he was talking about, and he said, everyone is happy, when people are still stranded without food. I've been a progressive ever since I could think. I always will be. I'll always be in favor of equal opportunity for everyone, anti-war, pro-free speech, and about protecting our ancient forests. I'm a child-free cat lady, a hippie, raver, burner, feminist, pagan, witch. I lived in San Francisco for 20 years and marched in the Pride marches every year. And I'm voting for Trump. I'm walking away from the Democrat Party. I don't particularly like Trump. I would rather have had Tulsi Gabbard or Kennedy, but when Kennedy dropped out, I have no choice. I have to vote for Trump. I fear the Democrats more. My values haven't changed. The Democrats have. This is how much of a progressive I am. I wrote this book about the origins of patriarchy before war, on marriage, hierarchy, and our matriarchal origins. Patriarchy is a trauma response. It's a system. It's not about blaming men, as both men and women are harmed by the system and both perpetuate it. And now I believe that the left is perpetuating patriarchy more. In the 90s, I do believe the right were the ones who were acting authoritarian and on the wrong side of history, and that Fox News were the propagandists. But the elites must have realized that the left wing was becoming more popular and they needed to work through the left instead of the right. They needed to control and infiltrate the populist movements for equality instead of suppressing them. And now the left has turned fascist. In 2016, like all good liberals, I didn't speak to my mom for months for voting for Trump. Sorry, Mom. But as the Trump years went on, I started to notice that nothing bad was happening, nothing fascist was happening. In 2019, I went to a conference. It was a alien disclosure conference in California. I was actually more there for the alternative archaeology rather than the aliens. But I was in this big auditorium and there were thousands of people and the speaker said, Trump 2020, and like 3/4 of the people cheered. And I was so blown away. I always thought, hey, we the left, we're the conspiracy theorists, and the right wing, they're the conspiracy doers. They're the establishment. We're the freedom fighters. I was so confused that I ran out of the room, went straight to the bar by the pool and shot back 3 shots. I don't even drink hardly, and never during the middle of the day, but I just couldn't process that information. So I filed it away in my brain. Then, of course, 2020 happened, and the moment they announced the lockdown, my bullshit detector went off. I'm a human bullshit detector. And when they use words like 2 weeks to flatten the curve, I just feel like this is weird. So I told all my friends, all right, I'll stay home for 2 weeks, but this is not the end of it. Something weird is happening. And I spent that 2 weeks researching viruses, and I found out that nobody actually knows how viruses are spread or has any real information about them. It's all actually theories. But I got kicked out of virology groups for asking questions. So then came out of lockdown, immediately saw the creepy towers that had popped up everywhere while we were dutifully holed up in our homes. I thought, this is creepy. And then the arrows to go one way in the grocery store, this is creepy. The Orwellian jingoistic propaganda like, we're all in this together. But my real come to Trump moment came in May 2020 when Trump defunded the WHO. By this time I was convinced that the WHO and the FDA and those 3-letter agencies were totally captured. And if Trump was defunding them, maybe he knew something. So, of course, I had noticed that the media hated Trump And by this time, the media had lied about so much about this COVID stuff that I was becoming convinced that they were completely captured. Total propaganda. So I thought, well, maybe if they hate Trump so much, maybe there's something to pay attention to. So I started fact-checking everything the media said about Trump, starting with the all Mexicans are racist thing. And I was watching the videos of what he actually said compared to what they cherry-picked and distorted what he was saying, and I realized that all of it was a lie. He wasn't racist. I didn't see any evidence that he was racist. He wasn't fascist. He was kind of crude, and he doesn't know the difference between Baltic and Balkan, but he wasn't all these things the media was saying he was. Okay, he's sexist. I guess all the politicians are sexist. He made a bunch of crude remarks like 10 years ago, which he apologized for. Yes, I would like to live in a non-sexist world, but at this point, Trump is all we've got. Then, January 6th. All my liberal friends were clutching their pearls like, oh, the precious sacred Capitol building. I was like, wait a second. Weren't we all about Occupy Wall Street, Occupy the government, smash the patriarchy? Aren't we the freedom fighters? Wait, all it took for the leftists to become pro-war, pro-corporate military-industrial complex was for their side to seemingly be in power. Talk about hypocrisy. Over the past few years of the Biden years, I've seen a true attack on democracy. Colluding with Facebook to censor free speech? Mandating injections while saying my body, my choice? Talk about hypocrisy. Weaponizing the justice system against their political opponents? Jailing people for posting videos? Removing a president from power and propping up a puppet no one voted for? I had always assumed that the left were always the good guys. Leftist ideology is better, but it's too prone to weaponization. It's too easy to weaponize empathy because it's easy to justify doing evil if you're convinced you're the good guy. But this is not the first time in history in which the left have been the bad guys. The communist movements in Russia and China, we saw the same things we see today. The celebration of hate and viciousness and snark and ignorance. Here's what communism is about. If you can identify yourself with or pretend to be speaking for the darling victim of the moment, the working class in the old communist movements, now it's BIPOC and queer people, you have the moral high ground even if you're being a total asshole. If you're doing it to an oppressor, back then the bourgeois, now the cis-het white men. However, it's not just white men, it's white women too. White women are not only painted as oppressors, but are ridiculed and Karenized. So communist movements aren't about equal opportunity, but about forcing equal outcomes. You can't force people to do the right thing. It just doesn't work. That's what DEI is about. Secondly, we have to base society around merit. It's unsafe to have unqualified people in power. And that's how I feel about Kamala Harris. Everything she says when she's not reading off a script is nonsense. I want a woman president so bad because, as I show in my book Before War, check it out on Amazon, the research shows that having more women in power leads to better outcomes for everyone. But I would never advocate for putting women in power just because they're women. They need to deserve it or they can do great harm. Having an unqualified woman like Harris could empower the sexists to say, see, women aren't fit for power. This would set the cause of women's leadership back by a long time. But more importantly, another 4 years of the undemocratic leadership we have now, they've gotten us on the brink of nuclear war and totalitarianism, digital surveillance, and a total crackdown on basic human rights and free speech. I'm not a big fan of Trump, but if you live in a swing state, I beg you, vote against the people in power now. Join the millions of us who have walked away from the Democrat Party. No one's going the other way. It's a one-way street.
For more great videos, download the Walkaway Social app at walkawaysocial.com. Share your testimonial and join our community.